Hi and welcome to Mavericks. This is a program we're talking to 25 very senior CEOs from different walks of life, different industries, so that we can bring about certain awareness to many of the listeners who are with us. And today we have Jonathan Allis, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of HNB. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Very good morning to you, Niroshan, and thank you for having me here.
Pleasure to have you. You are one of the CEOs that we've worked with and we've always been impressed. And I thought today would be such a good day to actually have a conversation. To begin with, talk to me about who Jonathan Allis is as a child, as a kid, as a teenager. Was he a naughty person? Was he a sports person? What kind of a person was Jonathan Allis?
I'd like to start by first saying many congratulations, Niroshan, and to your training consortium and for all the tremendous work that you have been doing, not just with us, but now probably spreading all over the world as well. And I wish you all success in your journey going forward. You're tremendously useful to the corporate world as well as to all of us as individuals as well. Going back many years, it was a tough childhood, I want to sort of admit, but an interesting one that I'm actually very grateful for in terms of the experiences, the challenges it posed, which has actually without any doubt made me what I am today. So things looked comfortable at the beginning, but losing my dad when I was 6, when my mom was just, a home mom, a housewife, was pushed into doing a little bit of work to, put bread on the table, and 3 hulking bulls to feed at home was an absolute, challenge. And even today to think of, what she had to endure, that is inspiration enough for me. The starting point for me probably would be, 10 days or maybe 11 days after my dad was buried was my birthday, and we just didn't know how to handle it. And my mom just hugged me and said something which has been my motto since and even until today. And that's now 5 decades on, which is do your best and leave the rest. And that's what I have actually lived by since then. There have been slight derivatives, add-ons to it as I have moved on because, learning from life experiences. But the kid in, Jonathan Allis was, somebody who probably worked hard. I would probably not think that smartness was there at that time. There wasn't enough intellect at that time. You knew I loved playing sport. What's this? Playing cricket, tried at football, did athletics, I enjoyed playing tennis, table tennis, all sports, being a prefect. And still tried to sort of do a little bit of studies. I was not too bad in my studies as well, but the more I focused on sport, especially as cricket got a little more serious as I grew up, studies kind of got a bit neglected and you ended up with fairly average to good results rather than the outstanding results you got as a junior. But it was really a challenging time. You could see, lifestyles around you, but the constraints that you were at, getting up early in the morning that has still continued to date, which was a very early start from me. All my work I did in the morning because I used to go 8, 9 in the night after cricket practices and all, quite tired, didn't have enough energy to, I just took a shower, probably then a nap. Early in the morning, did a little bit of work, then with my mom would have probably hit the bus and then got to school. But education was great. The experience at St. Joseph's College, it was a very rounded, holistic education that I was provided. It was during my time not just pure academic. We had enough of opportunities to do our sports, life education. What we learnt on the greens were as useful as what we learnt in the classroom. The camaraderie, friendship still exists, and they still happen to be the core bunch of friends that I, move in terms of whether the guys are in Canada, Australia, England, or in Sri Lanka. These groups are very active, and just an excellent bunch of guys whom I draw inspiration from even today. So probably in terms of imparting, what I would say is worked hard, did my very best, at the same time knew my limitations as well, and I used to sort of just look up for inspiration when I needed it, and it always sort of was sort of provided in terms of, I'm one of those guys who starts the morning by surrendering myself and every part of my life. Had I known that I didn't have the support that I have from above, I wouldn't be doing anything of what I am doing today. I wouldn't have tried it, because I know I'm not capable of anything other than, basically sinning. Like, people think that, they give credit to themselves for all what they do. All I know is I try hard, I have a passion for doing what I do, but I also know that if really God didn't want me to put this leg in front, He would stop me from doing that, and that's how limited I am actually. And to that extent, I remain eternally surrendered to the will of God in order to serve Him in any capacity that He chooses me, like to live the purpose that He created me for.
Thank you so much for sharing that personal thing of what your mom told you. It goes a long way. Many CEOs that I work with have one or two experiences that have carved out or brought about the best in them. And what was that?
Do your best and leave the rest. Yeah.
What a wonderful way of looking at life. How did you transform that to being a banker?
Again, equally interesting question, Niroshan. Didn't have much of a choice. My mom was doing hard labor. My brother had started working. I knew I had to, start earning at a very young age. So immediately out of school. Now, when my friends were, it was difficult as well, right? I was coming first in class right throughout. Yeah, at the initial stages, not doing too badly towards the end. You were head prefect of college, cricket captain of college. You would expect to do a degree and then move on. But I didn't have that choice. I had to sort of go in and support the family by going out there and working. So most of my family were bankers. That was the easy place to look at. I had 2-3 options, and with that I selected, a bank to join immediately out of school. And, it was a good choice. I gave the options to my mom. These are the options that I have. She said, you go with this. This might be the best option for you. And it also had a lot of friends who had played a lot of cricket with me, and so I enjoyed that experience and working hard again there. Probably banking, I would say, is in my family, as in my blood, so I sort of kind of got attracted to it quite naturally once I got in. Work became quite interesting for me. The thing that appealed to me most, especially when I started doing my studies, I started to realize that you want to do marketing, it's available in banking. You want to do credit, it's available. Risk management is available. Insurance is available. Strategy is there. Retail banking, wholesale. Everything was there if you really wanted. So it gave me a lot of breadth rather than some of the being sort of confined to a product or two, or in another company. So I enjoyed that, worked hard, and I think I was recognized as well. So I appreciate my employer, who at a very young age, so it wasn't as if there was a little bit of frustration going into a job in the early 20s without doing studies, but luckily after probably an initial couple of years where I lost my way, just working, but then also not that focus. Then again, that's when 15 years after that first message from my mom came her second message. I would probably think that first message was in 1973, and the second message came to me in 1988. That's the follow-on message. And when she knew that I was drifting and probably a bit aimless and not focused on what I needed to do, she said, you're destined to do better. He said, then she said, I know what you're going through, but take your time and just think through in terms of what you want to achieve. Is it this, or look back and see what you have done? Wouldn't you be able to do something more? Then I realized that this was not what I was going to do. I mean, just in about a year and a half, I knocked my banking exams, and around the same time, I was fortunate to be the first non-executive, I would think, to get cross-posted overseas, and that I count as a real blessing in an organization that had more than 100 years experience here. To be that first was a very good thing. Since then, many have actually gone, and that exposure, going around 10, 15 countries, doing a lot of interesting work, giving an international flavor at a very young age, 3 years into my job, became a huge advantage for me when I actually came back. Then I continued for about almost 20 years overseas.
Okay.
I had made up my mind, got a lot of exposure in corporate banking, strategy, did a lot of HR work as well. So a lot of what you sometimes say makes a lot of sense and resonates with me, and I enjoy hearing you as well. So did a lot of it as part of being in training. I was a corporate trainer. I've got various, I'm accredited at Group Training Management, GTMD, in Bricket Wood. At the time I was at HSBC, and so those experiences were very good. So when you have got a little bit of the good part is that having started at the absolute entry level, I have gone through, a lot of these areas in terms of work. So instead of being today a CEO who has sort of just come in, with limited exposure, the breadth I can cover, and the depth that I also have in a lot of areas, helps me a lot, and I think helps my colleagues a lot as well. So the combination of doing retail banking, wholesale banking, then operations, doing training, involved in system implementations, and then strategy, actually brought a lot together and actually helped me in terms of to look at it at a higher level, to develop that vision and then sort of take it forward. I had sworn to myself that I would retire at 35, and I did. Okay. So whatever you see of me today is retirement, right? So basically, come 2001, I came back to Sri Lanka, and a few people saying, what are you doing overseas? See how beautiful the place is. Christmas looked great. The lights are all lit up and all that. And also then I remembered 35, I had to kind of retire. So I actually, the bank was very disappointed. What is wrong with this guy at this particular stage? So I came back to Colombo at that stage, and then just to keep myself occupied, I thought I'm going to do some work. And that work was basically got 3-4 opportunities to join banks. See, on the same day I was interviewed, and I was glad actually that I picked on HNB at that time in 2001. I think it's purely the way the chairman and the managing director interviewed me, treated me. They showed that they wanted me, they were interested in me more than anything else, and probably more than anyone else. And to date, I realize the importance now. Even if I do an interview even for a short while with some person, I go back to thinking, you know, how it had an impact, the way at that such a senior level, the way actually they had time for me, so that's where I actually joined HNB for the first time, spent almost 3 years here as an AGM. So I was the first manager at the new HNB Towers, the head office branch. So that's a beautiful experience. I had a wonderful time there. At the same time, while managing the credit and the branch operations and, you know, enjoying the combined Dali Road and Sudwella branches, being involved in various corporate management activity with the team at that time under the leadership of Mr. Vijay Tilaka was also a great experience and a learning. But unfortunately, with the country situations and all that, I went off for about 4 years once again, but that experience was equally good. At which time HNB invited me again to come back, and I came back in 2010 as the Chief Operating Officer, and then moved on to Deputy Chief Executive Officer, and took over as the CEO in 2013. And I've been here, it's been a fairly long innings, it's been a good experience, and an experience in which I have learnt a lot, and I hope the entire team has learned, because Sri Lanka has gone through many phases during these 10 years, and in that HNB has learned and grown, and hopefully today we are conscious of our responsibility to the nation, to our customers, and keep, you know, evolving ourselves, keep sort of being relevant, and our whole ethos of being future ready. Whether we talk of digital, whether we talk of customer service, whether it talks of we talk of keeping our knowledge levels at the, you know, right levels to be of you know, be able to advise and guide and, you know, help our clients is something that, you know, keeps us on our toes, keeps us excited, and you know, when we wake up, we are sort of excited, motivated, because we have something to look forward to.
Yeah. Absolutely. Jonathan, we have many people who will be watching this, of which a segment I'd like to touch right now. The younger. And now I don't know the definition of younger, because younger could be 45, younger could be at heart also. But the ones who are starting off, when they look at banking, it's not sometimes the most exciting of professions. And in the world of everyone wanting to be innovative, having their own business startups, you know, you're thinking of banking. And on the same token, someone who's played the long innings, and I'm hoping and praying that you have many more to go in that innings as well, but nevertheless, what advice could you give them? Because you're a guy who started at the bottom, you've had many variations from whatever you said a moment ago. What could you tell them? Small note for them.
So very quickly, some of the other jobs that are available, the new jobs, the new designations are very exciting, particularly the startups, you know, people who want to, I am all for sort of promoting entrepreneurship in Sri Lanka, because we have, I want people to start thinking, people starting to own their businesses, people to be innovative, creative, you know, develop their own products, take it out to the market, take it to the international market. Sri Lankans have got immense talent. It's just unfortunate we don't have the framework and the structure to promote, you know, a lot of these. Some of them on their, with their own capabilities are able to kind of venture out and do a lot of things. But in that, because we don't have this infrastructure or framework, we lose a lot of talent, and we hear of Sri Lankans doing great stuff overseas, and I start to think, oh, this is what should have actually been happening happening here. So I'm not discouraging any part of it. I am as excited for them as they are in doing those different stuff. So there are two aspects to it. One is what bankers should actually adapt, how we should actually change from those days. There was a time you worked, you wanted a job, you wanted job security, right? And a bank provided that security. The bank had a lot of facilities. It gives concessionary loans. It has various other features which actually made banking, an attractive place to be in for somebody who was not, for the corporate world. And for a guy like me, the breadth it covered, as opposed to what a corporate covered or a specific industry covered, banking touched all those industries. I mean, whether it's shipping, whether, all the areas. So that excitement was there. So banks need to think differently in terms of their employee structures, the type of contracts that they are going to offer. How do they actually make it interesting? They don't need to necessarily look at, planning for careers for 30 years when somebody actually joins. So we need to be able to now understand, talk to all our stakeholders and show that we would have people who will have interest in doing that the beginning. People would actually come and want to come in the middle and get some experience, and people who'd want to come at the top after getting other experiences, rather than looking only for that in-house grown. So we talk of, it's great to have in-house, have people groomed, we talk a lot about succession planning and all that, which is so important for an organization. You continue to do that. I mean, no way saying you don't. You continue to sort of build up skills within you, cross-skill people, you multi-skill people, and then make sure that all that is in place. But at the same time, you need to sort of realize that you need to have certain amount of people coming in and going out, which makes a difference to the organization. Now, for those who are outside, what makes banking interesting, especially for the youngsters, what I would basically say is all what you like to do, whether with fintechs, with startups, or with micro entrepreneurs. You like rural finance, you like to work with the youth, you like to work with technology company. You can do all that while being in the bank as well, getting this exposure. Banks use a lot of technology, so we are looking at going paperless, we are looking at automating a lot of stuff. So understanding it, we are talking now AIs, RPAs, PAs, and all, the whole lot. So that part of it, and today's youth are very tech savvy. Exactly. That's a huge plus to get into the bank and make those changes. We have got these innovation centers, they can start contributing. It's not the normal thing like when we started. So it's getting into the bank, you start moving around, learning new work, but at the same time, you're in these youth teams, you're in cross-functional teams, doing various other works as well. Some of the CSR work, sustainability work is as interesting. I see some youngsters who have just joined, who will go, to the cancer hospital and do a study of that, who would go elsewhere on another project, evaluate and come. Those are all great new experiences for them in addition to the work that they do. So the education programs, you can study anything that you want. Banks recognize all of those, not just the banking part. The same way, the fact that you learn many industries, and then you can get a feel for, is it banking for me? Is it, which part of banking do I want to specialize? Or seeing my customers, which is all the industries, I can make a call in terms of, where my passion is, what do I actually enjoy doing it. So it's still, I would think, a reasonable option and a proposition, getting into a bank and starting your career. And you don't need to make a commitment for retirement at the bank, but you certainly will have an enjoyable experience learning a lot.
Of course, of course. I'll be failing in my duty if I don't ask you this question. We talk about banks, we talk about financial crisis, we talk about a few banks shutting down in different parts of the world. Banking and money is purely based on trust, and trust is very, very important. What's happening globally right now? Just your thoughts, nothing technical, just your thoughts. What's happening to money and trust? And
So to me, basically, before I even come to money and trust, now trust is an important aspect, like I mean our whole ethos, our whole philosophy, our spirituality revolves around about having faith, hope and trust. And then trust is something like, if you, especially in banking, now we are custodians of our customers' deposits and our shareholders' funds, and our job is, none of it is ours. Our job is to conscientiously work to protect and grow that, so, and be responsible. To do that, we need to make sure our investments are the right ones, and that we do not, speculate, we do not, we work within the confines of, and the parameters that are actually provided. You might say it's the economy, you might say a little bit of recession, you might say limited opportunities to invest broadly where you would want to, and if you're forced to put your funds in a particular area and sort of there's concentration building up there and there's a bubble that comes through and it bursts, then it creates an issue. If you talk specifically of some of the global issues that are out there. Closer to home, if you take Sri Lanka right now, whilst the banking sector has been strong right through the ups and downs of the economy over the last 30, 40 years, we have been challenged. We have been challenged through inclement weather, we have been challenged through giving extended moratoriums, we have been challenged through, ineffective and long winding legal procedures and settlement of cases, etc., which creates a lot of stress on the portfolio. And now more recently, obviously the good news is we have got IMF on board, but we are waiting to see what happens to the sovereign bond and the domestic debt discussions. What we sincerely hope is that there won't be a haircut or any reprofiling for the banks, because all what we did was invested as liquid asset ratio and not as investments. So these were all customer deposits that were actually invested there, and we should be probably treated a little differently from international investors who put in money for a return. But that having said, if there is any impact, we need to be ready. There again I go back to the trust factor. Now, in order to provide trust and security to the customers, you put your money into treasury bills, bonds and stuff, and if those are under pressure, then you worry about, the whole trust index doesn't actually work. But I go back to something a little more fundamental than that, and I think this might also probably tell us a little bit of, the problem that the world is actually going through. I think one is we have forgotten the purpose that we were created for. When we were created in order to come and do the best that we could and to be of service to others, right? I mean, everybody had a purpose. So we have forgotten basically that, and in doing that, we have also lost a little bit of our conscience. A little bit of good and bad, kind of we are able to justify some of the things that are not good. People are finding good reasons to explain themselves in terms of how do you actually justify, validate some of this, which is really disappointing when you hear the caliber of people who are justifying some of the wrongs. With that, you see that you have lost respect for yourself. If you actually don't have a conscience, you can actually start talking, there is no good and bad, and you can sleep still in the night with a conscience that's heavy. If you have no respect and love for yourself, then you don't have respect for the others. When you don't have respect for the others, it doesn't matter what you do to the others. So there lies the issue of whether being corrupt, whether you have to take commissions, whether you actually take what is, undue gains, monies that are due to the poor and which should be distributed to them for their livelihoods are being siphoned. How much do you want? How much, and I'm talking global here, how much is enough, right? If you take of some of the wealthy individuals and corporations and stuff, and then you see poverty taking place, you wonder, is that, where are you going after, tomorrow I might die. And when I die tomorrow, have I lived my life to the fullest? And what is the significance of my life? So we talk of, success, which is, a reasonable thing for people to look at. People try to study well, you receive accolades in sports and education and stuff. Then in careers, you get promotions, you get higher salaries, you build a house, you get a vehicle, you marry, you have kids, they study. All that is nice and very good, and it, as long as they're actually done in the right spirit. And then you start talking about being significance, and the only definition is giving, right? There's nothing beyond, it's about giving. The part is, people think it's two halves of your lives, right? And that's where I probably see Europe doing it a little differently, and the West, where we think the first part, we, cram, we work hard, all that to build. And then in the second half, we think of actually giving back. Oh, I have so much, now I can start giving little bits on charity and give a little bit of my time. My thinking is actually that you need to do it right along. No matter how little you have, you need to be able to share. Sharing your time is something that you can. Sharing your knowledge is something that you can. You have a skill, sharing that. There's that. All this, what it will do is it will just double and treble and quadruple your talents. You will grow, you will be a happier person, and that's what needs to be done. Instead of, right now, we get even the people even who should be in the giving stage, in the significant stage, who are still trying to, plunder and, trying to gather. And I'm not referring to Sri Lanka, I repeat, I'm talking globally. Yeah, if you just take the wars that are taking place and all that's taking place between the haves and the haves not, it's very disappointing actually. I'm sure when God created this world, there's no way that he wanted this as the end result, so he can't be very happy. He must be a sad person today when he sees some of us behaving the way we behave, and we behave like we are not answerable to anybody. Sure. We must realize that this shirt I'm wearing is not mine. It's been given to me, right? And I have got to be responsible. Everything that I have belongs to somebody else. It's on loan given to me in order that I actually do good with it. And people need to realize that.
Needs versus greed. And greed has no end. I hear many lovely things about spirituality and the self-awakening that you've actually had, and your thought processes being nicely formatted through religion, spirituality, and most often in the busy days of most CEOs, with the type of decisions and the tough decisions we need to make, the values that we need to uphold are sometimes neglected. Neglected not because we are bad people, but neglected because we have to go through and make tough decisions. When you have to make really tough decisions that impact someone's life within the organization, as in your designation, how does that impact you in your heart when your formatting is so
tough.
Good?
Really tough. some of those decisions that you make because you hold office and in an organization, at a personal level, you wouldn't even think of doing. You would always, I mean, God says, when Peter asked Jesus, how many times do I forgive? 7 times. Jesus replies, no, 7 times 77 or something. Just to say that it's an unlimited amount of time. For example, today's gospel, where Mary Magdalene was caught in the act of adultery, and then all the people were going to stone her to death. Then Jesus asked the others, whoever who has not committed a sin, throw the first, cast the first stone. And everybody left. She converted and she sort of went. Again, there are a few things to it. So my whole life is built around my spirituality. I'm not saying that, everybody needs to do it. It's just me, and it's something that I've got used to. So it doesn't matter whether I'm up at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. I would probably spend the time, about an hour in prayer, then I'll get down to some work. If I'm in the gym 5 o'clock sharp till about 7 o'clock, or maybe a little longer, the whole time the Verbum TV is on. So the rosaries, the readings and the masses go on in the morning while I'm working out. Without fail, I go for mass middle of the day, and that keeps the balance of the day for me. And wherever possible, I get back to prayer in the evening as well. And certainly before I end the day, there is some reflection that takes place. So, like I said, everything is about being in total surrender. The first book I read when I took over was about Jesus being the greatest servant leader, and that has been my motto as well, that, there's nothing, that I need to think too much about this particular job. If I thought for a moment that I was doing this job, I would run a mile. I wouldn't stay anywhere close to my job. But because I know I get so much of help and guidance, and I'm so, full of the support that I get, and by myself how inadequate I am, is what actually keeps me going. Having that faith, having that trust that God will not let me down, or my colleagues down, or my organization down, and will continue to help our customers and all around us. So that keeps me motivated, that keeps me inspired, and keeps me going. So I'll probably take a couple of examples to basically explain myself. So if it was me in certain cases, I would continuously advise. I have won over a lot of people who were probably going on the wrong side by nipping it in the bud at an early stage, which is, from an organizational point of view, also is acceptable, right? It's not wrong to do that. You keep saying, look here, I think you need to notice this. You need to actually now course correct, get back on track, and then let's do this. So this is a little different from mentoring on the work. This is more coaching, where you're actually talking about the severity depending on just course correcting to straight jacketing to tighter milestones which are monitored at a very shorter intervals, purely for the benefit of the coachee, not for anything else, so that you want to get that person back on track. You can do all of those things, and I enjoy doing it with my top team, the minus ones. I just finished the appraisals, had a good conversation with most of them. So for performance, it's very unlikely, even as an MD or a CEO over the last decade, that I would have had to make a very difficult call. A lot of our guys are very passionate, and you are able to sort of get them to move the needle to an acceptable level. Now, from being weak, they don't become outstanding or exceeds, but they become acceptable at a meets expectation or at a midpoint level, and that's something that the organization can actually handle, absorb, and are happy to actually have that caliber of staff who have actually tried. And that attitude, that effort is most, appreciated. It's probably the two areas which are most difficult. And from a spiritual, personal point of view, I still have room in my heart for all of them. But from an organizational point of view, you might be giving the wrong message, Niroshan. And that's, we don't tolerate any fraud. We don't tolerate anything because we are custodians.
Sure.
If the customer finds out that you are actually harboring people and keeping people who have actually stolen, put money in the put the hand in the till, that doesn't help. It doesn't happen often. It's very, very rare. But when it happens, you don't have a choice. Even I don't have a choice. These papers don't even come to me saying, what do you think? It doesn't. It just says, we think you're going to do this. And then I can't say, no, I don't think you do, right? So it just happens. And I don't feel too bad about it, actually, in terms of, personally, I feel bad.
Sure.
Right? And some of those people who have gone are still in touch with me. At a personal level. Don't involve the bank. How can I help you? I still help these people. They are hundreds of kilometers away from the bank doing, other small jobs. My office is still involved in seeing how they can help them at a personal level. But at an office level, I have not compromised on the principles of the bank. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is more than performance, if you are not collaborating, if you are not pulling together. It's so important, particularly when you're at the top, that you actually pass the right message down, and it has to be one voice, one team. Otherwise, you're misleading 6,000 people out there with different views. So if the organization cannot afford to have 2-3 messages and conflicting messages going out, so there you need to have a more serious conversation. It's not a performance discussion there. It's a different discussion saying, look here, chum, we need to work together, and this is where the bank wants to go. This is its vision. And if it's not working, then obviously we all have our choices, and you at an early stage say, plans need to be made accordingly, and give the person enough of time to sort of straitjacket. Again, if that person is unable to fall in line, you actually allow them to go rather than contaminate the rest of the organization. So in summary, performance can be managed quite well, personally as well as at a professional level. Fraud is something that at the organization it cannot be tolerated whatsoever, and not collaborating, not working together, not pulling together, especially at the management level, is something that will be very, very difficult. So my advice to probably all is, to everybody listening, would be that working as a team is absolutely critical.
Very good. When I go home after a long day of coaching, and I coach quite a lot of people here in Sri Lanka, here and abroad, and I look at my two little fellows. I have two little fellows, and I wonder who will coach them someday. Maybe I'll be a little too old for that. When Jonathan goes home, how is he as a dad?
Oh, that's a tough one. So,
because you coach so many people, you lead so many people.
So I basically, in probably working a little harder than maybe I should have neglected them a little bit while they were growing up, thinking that things would be okay. So that's probably a regret that I have, in that I could have been there more. I could have done a little more when they were growing up. As long as I saw them smiling, I saw them, having a good time, I thought everything was, okay. But if you take the Jonathan now with his kids, so even back then, I would have sat with them and done a little bit of work with them. And I thought that was good enough. I was helping them with their studies. But now I realize it should have been much more than actually just helping with the work. Should have been there, socially, spent more time, played more. Right now we play cards, we play various games together. Even though they are out, I still connect with them on a daily basis in terms of if they have any questions with their work, with their programs, how they go about. So there's still a little bit of coaching taking place, whether my daughter is in UK, my son is in Canada, the third one is here. I spend a little time just checking how did it go, how was your day, what have you been doing, how can I be of any help. So I'm reasonably useful now. I could have been more useful before. And if you look at the hours that I have put in with my colleagues in the banking industry, then I would say what I have spent with my family has been inadequate.
I'm sure you're a good dad. The last time we met, I think time's moved on very fast. You were rushing to have Japanese with them because you told me they love Japanese. I can remember that. So not too bad. That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they just love it actually. They love their sushis and their sashimis and all that.
It was interesting to the last point about work-life balance. It's a topic that everybody talks about. And I was talking to this CEO who said retirement is for people who think they need to do things after they retire, and they could have done it while they were doing their work. And I've had people talking about their own practical experiences. Life has its own ways of balancing for different people. How would you look at retirement and life balance in the future, days ahead?
So, work-life balance has not been good. I'll be the first to admit growing up. But you did a fair amount of sports, you did your studies, you did your work. Probably work dominated more than anything else, Niroshan. Yes. But today, as I work, I have at this level, I still have a better balance. Like you see, I spend a fair amount of time spiritually. I still get a workout. I still go and get my work in the bank done. I still have time to go and spend time with my kids, no matter where they are. I connect with them on a daily basis. In addition, if I have to connect with friends, etc., I do that. So it's better than it was ever before. So there's been a drastic improvement. But do I need to retire to do a lot of things that I've got lined up? Certainly not. I would actually want to do it on the fly. So I would, after having such a busy life from probably my third year or fourth year, right, for the last 50, I'll find it difficult to immediately kind of close up. So I'll keep myself occupied. I'll keep myself busy, and there'll be in many more ways than one which I'll find avenues to give back to God by actually giving my neighbor my time, my resources, whatever skill I have and whatever resources God has provided me. Very happily I would find avenues to impart them, because I'm not going to take any of this and go when I go to heaven, if I do go to heaven.
I'm sure you would.
Yeah.
Technology, a topic that is being debated from different corners. Some talk about these new tools of ChatGPT and all of them coming in, and some again would say these tools are neglecting our ways of study and so on and so forth. And yet technology is here to stay. Are we overdoing it?
As long as technology is your slave and you're not a slave to technology, I think it's brilliant.
Okay.
The problem that you have is today, first of all, I'm going to talk of how good it is, right? Whether in automating stuff, giving a better experience, making life easy, saving us time, getting accurate work done, providing us so much of data. I think it's just wonderful to have it, that you can actually now start making better data-driven, data-based decisions and hopefully make more accurate decisions rather than relying on the guts and all that our, forefathers, spoke of, etc. So I see a lot of good in technology, whether it's in enhancing customer experience, in knowledge, as well as making it so convenient, and it helps staff, it helps the customers, and I think that's the way forward. Where I think you brought in a good point, which is we must not go overboard even with technology. There are two aspects to this. One is you and I, and especially our kids, I'll confine it to our kids, should not get addicted to it. Whether it's the games and the chats and the various stuff, they should not get too hooked onto it. Everything has its value, everything has its time, and all in moderation is good. Anything excessive is addictive and is harmful, right? So basically, we need to be careful. But an important point that I want to come to is, because it's a huge business, the cycles are too short, right? People talk of, it's change, you've got to be there, others will be left behind, and all those kind of subtle threats are being given. So we are all getting very excited. Sure. And we want to have every single step of the way, we need to have what's already there. But I think you can give one or two things a miss. If you're careful and you really understand what you really need, you can pick the areas that you want to focus and what is actually most useful to you as a bank, or to you in your particular industry, or for you as an individual, and then move accordingly. So I go back to use technology, be on top of technology, don't let technology control you, and don't be a slave to technology.
Sure. Now, most of these questions I'm asking not as a particular bank that you're working for, just comments itself. Now, when you go to the US, they will talk about wage disparities between CEO wages and all these kinds of things, which I don't know. I don't think it happens here. But certainly the comment would be, and this is it wouldn't be Niroshan if he didn't ask a controversial question. Many people say banks are more worried about stakeholders than customers. How true is that? They look after stakeholder values and making more money for shareholders, okay, not stakeholders,
sure,
than customers.
So the biggest stakeholder of a bank is its customers.
Yeah.
Because 90% of our liabilities are deposits and come from customers. Only 10% comes from shareholders, right? So they very clearly, when I am a custodian, 90% of that weightage is towards customers. So they are the most important things. Shareholders are very important because they are risking their hard-earned savings, and they're investing in the bank in order for us to make a return and to make profits and give them a return. But so are the customers who expect us to make money and pay interest on their deposits. It's not different, just that the scale is 9 to 1, right, almost, right? So, so we have got to take care of both our shareholders as well as our customers. In doing that, we have got to then channel those funds very responsibly on the asset side by deploying them into the right loans, right overdrafts, right products with the right customers, right? So you can't just, at the end, discipline in this country has got to improve significantly. We sort of, some of us are priding ourselves of being in default. And, I encourage others also not to pay, which is, a very bad habit. And so what we need to do is basically develop this credit conscious culture, a culture of repaying, honoring your debts, honoring your responsibilities, keeping commitments. So that helps, the credit culture, and we can start distributing, credit. So the banks have got to be very responsible when it actually lends its monies, even when it spends, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just said lots of technology, but I can't afford to put my money into every bit of technology that's there, because at the end it's monies of my customers, right? I've got to be selective and only select those technologies and those investments that yield value. The same way when I actually lend, the same way when I invest, and we've got to also manage our own internal salary structures, our internal costs. We need to, because times are hard. So tightening the belt is for bankers and for all at this particular stage over the next 5 to 10 years. That's what we all Sri Lankans need to do to come out of the difficulty that we have. So I would think we take a lot of care about protecting our customers' deposits and our shareholders' funds, and when we make investment decisions, credit decisions and expenditure decisions, we are very conscientious of that it's not my money that I am spending, but it's theirs.
Yes, being a customer of HNB, I'm so reassured with that. I had the pleasure of coaching some of your best. And one thing that I found was they were truly Hatton family. The vibes that I had of how they felt about the business, and I work for a lot of businesses. I work for over 200 organizations in different parts of the world. And I find a unique blend you found. Could you let in on the secret, one or two things that keeps the family together?
I think there's a lot of passion there. It's a great team, and the Hatton brand of 135 years and the heritage, the legacy that flows through is something that they are all proud about, especially those who have been in the bank for 20, 30 years, and the stories they're able to impart to those who have been 10 years, where now I'm beginning to see. And if we don't actually continue that, I can see some of the youngsters not being not relating to this culture. So it's a really strong, let's say, passion that exists between those with 10 years to 30 years, and it's that 20 to 30 years guys whom we are able to actually get anything done. So whilst I said it's good to get some experience from out, etc., I'm so happy with, some of these guys, the way they have come up over the last 10 years through various development programs. We had, with you, we called it Catalyst, we had Acumen programs, we had Insight programs, and, various, now we have impact programs at a different level. These people, really come up and they're ready and aspiring and gunning for the next position. So the future leaders of HNB are slowly taking shape, as well as getting into the org chart, which is just nice to see. A great passion. It stems from, years of knowing what the bank is, that passion to do live grassroots banking, promote livelihoods, be impactful, be meaningful. Sustainability is an important, ethos of the bank. All this, lends well. So I focus a lot on the 3 H's, and we try to work a little more and harder on the head. We want to execute better with the hands, but what we have is a great heart actually, and that heart must be leveraged, must be actually harnessed, nurtured in order to actually work the head and the hands and bring that coordination. HNB will, go from strength to strength.
Lovely. To finish off this segment, what could be the few lessons that you can leave behind to the up and coming CEOs of Sri Lanka?
two aspects. One is, I'm not going to talk about, importance of communication, organization, those skills, being strategic, having a vision, all that is important, let's say, for a CEO. So you need to, like I spoke of the head, heart, and the hands, right? The triple H is something really important. Vision to basically then having discussions, consensus, agreeing, execution. That flow has got to be, very beautiful. Having, a team spirit and working as one team is really important. But probably if I am to think of, what I focused on, if it's of any use more than anything as a CEO or as a leader, I think I would like, what I enjoy most is you need to be humble. Humility, the simplicity, you need to be simple. I think you also need to, I started off by saying your faith. You need to be faithful to the person who actually provided you this opportunity, and you need to do justice because you were given a responsibility, not to sort of boast about it or drive egos. So because of that, then it becomes, that you're a servant rather than a boss, or well, you need to serve them. You need to be in a position to help them. So service comes automatically as being a servant leadership. Being selfless is something that is really important. Things can get, tough. I think you need to be patient. Right, as a leader, you can't, rush. You can't make hasty decisions. You need to know that not everybody goes at the same pace, and you need to sort of be very understanding, and you need to then persevere in all these areas. So you still know what you want to achieve, but you need to be able to take all of them with you as still the selfless giver, the service provider, the humble, simple person, but you can't stray away from what you want to achieve as well. So you need to persevere with your goals, but take the whole team with you. But I'll probably like to sort of end with the sentence that understand the purpose of why you were created, right? Love yourself, respect others in all that you do. Then you will never have to doubt your own honesty, your integrity as to then why you're doing something. You'll never have any doubts about it. You'll always do something for the best, for the organization and for the people. And you must be able to validate every single action. You must be as transparent as possible in being able to articulate why a particular decision was made. If you are not able to, there can't be secrets at the top. There can't be, and I don't need to tell you I need to tell you everything, and I'm able to tell you everything in terms of why it happened. Not everybody will agree with everything, but hopefully most will, because hopefully you're making the right decision, and that's what you're expected to do all the time at these levels.
CEO of HNB, Jonathan Lallis, what a wonderful session. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope we'll chat again soon. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me once again. My heartiest congratulations and my best wishes for lots of success with Training Consortium and all your endeavors all over the world. Thank you, Niroshan.
Thank you so much.